and then we'll take it from there. Brian Hoodie, good morning, sir. Good morning. Appreciate the support. Appreciate the support. John Chaney, my brother. Good morning. Good morning. Appreciate the support, my brother. And Lady Michelle, good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Appreciate the support. Appreciate the support. Call in number 844-904-2665. That's 844-904-2665. No matter what the situation is, let your voice be heard. All we ask is say what you mean what you say when you come in. If you got a comment, call in, or also you can also comment through Facebook, YouTube, however you're watching this morning, and let your voice be heard. Deborah Harris, good morning. Good morning. Appreciate your support. Appreciate your support. Rebecca Carter, hey, good morning. Good morning. Appreciate your support, Becky. Appreciate that. Appreciate that. So it's been a good week. Been a good week for me. I don't know about you. I know on the East Coast and in the Midwest, they're getting snow and everything. It's, we're coming out of this pandemic. Looks like they're dropping all the mask mandates in a lot of states and everything. All I say, as I always say, be careful out there. Protect yourself. Protect your family. Do what you got to do for your due diligence to make sure you're staying safe in this. Numbers have dropped with the pandemic. However, there's still traces floating through the air and everything. So you got to do your due diligence. That's all I'm going to say. Do your due diligence. I'm going to start off with something different today. Before we even get into our main part of the show. I seen this week, or was it early this week, maybe? Brian Flores, NFL, head coach, Miami Dolphins, got fired. Brought up the lawsuit against the NFL for hiring practices and all this kind of stuff, and the Dolphins as a whole. Well, this week he was hired by the Pittsburgh Steelers, Mike Tomlin, as a senior defensive coordinator advisor, some title that we never heard before, anything like that. I don't know all the intricate details of why he got the job, why he got hired for the job, or anything like that. My biggest question is does the lawsuit continue on now that he's employed? How does that work? What's going on? Also, I seen last week, and I didn't mention it, that they hired former, I can't remember what position, Loretta Lynch, under the Obama administration. They hired her as counsel for the NFL to be their lawyer. So they hired someone of African-American descent to, fight the case for them. Let's see how all this is going to turn out. I don't know how the ins and outs are going to work as far as him having a job now. Lawsuit shouldn't change even though he has a job. The lawsuit was about the hiring practices and why he wasn't notified or he didn't get a job as a head coach as he should have. So we'll keep an eye on that. We'll keep watching it. I'll keep following it and keeping you updated on that. But then we'll go from there and see what's going on with that. John Chaney, prime example of why we need more black men making decisions on hiring. True. Mike Tomlin reached out to him, gave him a job as the only black head coach at the time. I think they had two other ones that they hired in the meantime, in between time or whatever, during this cycle. But yeah, Mike Tomlin brought him on board. And there's speculation that it may be the transitioning of Mike Tomlin stepping aside, maybe him filling into that position. I don't know all the ins and outs. We don't know what the future may hold with that, but we'll see. We'll keep watching and we'll go from there. You know what I'm saying? That's all we can do is keep watching and hoping that these systems work themselves out as well as the people that are in the systems that are making these decisions. Now, this is a hard one to talk about, y'all, because right now, Russia has invaded Ukraine. Let's just call it what it is. There's a war going on in Ukraine. Good morning, my sister. Good morning, April Week. Good morning, sis. Appreciate support. There's a war going on in Ukraine that has been instigated by Russia. Vladimir Putin, friend of our former president, Donald Trump. I say friend because of the interactions. Because before I get into this, let me just ask this question before I get into this real deep. After the Cold War ended, per se, when Ronald Reagan said, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall, all the movement from there on how, we were against what Russia was doing and this and that and the communism and all this kind of stuff. I'm trying to understand. I'll say understand. When did we get to the point where American citizens, let's just call it American citizens, have become comfortable with Russia, have become comfortable with the communist regime of Russia, Vladimir Putin, dealing with the oligarchs, with the money, all these things that we hear about now. I'm trying to find out I'm trying to figure out when the dichotomy changed for us to be friendly, per se, with Russia. Because if you remember back when President Obama was president and they had a meeting and they had a big thing because President Obama, who stands a little taller than Putin, is about like this, but he stared him down, they said, because of sanctions he was going to impose on him and different things like that. But I'm trying to figure out, when did we go awry as the United States of America to be supposedly the support that's coming in? And I bring that up because of this. You have a lot of people that are supporting Vladimir Putin and what he did with Ukraine, as far as him invading, from the United States perspective. Some are congressmen, some are senators, some are elected officials that we have put into office that are okay. Watch what I'm saying now, that are okay with the fact that he chose to invade Ukraine. Former President Trump, let's start there, said that Vladimir Putin's justification was, what did he say? He called it savvy and genius. This is a former president of the United States saying that another country invading another country was savvy and genius. When did we get to this point where war is looked at as a beautiful thing? Is it because we're not totally involved yet? I mean, because we do have troops over there that may have to go in. See, this is where I always say this, and y'all gonna get tired of hearing me say, you need to pay attention to the people that were elected for these positions to make these decisions. You had a former Secretary of State now, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. He expressed enormous respect for Vladimir Putin for going into Ukraine. Enormous respect for going into Ukraine. Deborah Harris, I think it's plain bullying. It is plain bullying. And it's about money. It's all about money. It's about money and power and control. And I'll say that over and over again. Money, power, and control is exactly what it's about. James Battle, when the Russians helped install a puppet as president of the United States, everything changed. Well, I wasn't going to go there. I wasn't going to go there. But I will bring this up, and I appreciate that, James Battle, because I'm going to bring this up. When we hear about Ukraine, what comes to mind? What comes to my mind is let's just go here because I wrote this down. Former President Trump's first impeachment was about him withholding $400 million in military aid to Ukraine. Let me say that again for all y'all so y'all can catch up here. His first impeachment was due to the fact of withholding $400 million in military aid to Ukraine to help against Russia, who he's friends with, buddies with, who he, idolizes. So people out there who are trying to say that President Biden is the one that caused Russia to go into Ukraine, trust and believe me when I say this. This has been going on and planning for a long time. See, if everyone would think back during the Trump administration, Ukraine was one of the prominent names that came out of every conversation when it dealt with unilateral communications. Going in there, they tried to say Ukraine was part of, the rigged election. There were servers in Ukraine. Remember Rudy Giuliani going back? Remember when the reason that the $400 million was withheld because former President Trump said that he wanted them to investigate Hunter Biden and Joe Biden and the servers and find something that was nefarious over there. See, all these things come into play, but I think we lose sight of everything that leads up to where we're at now. Because if you remember, there was communications with Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin at the time that nobody has any idea what was communicated because he wouldn't let reporters into the room. No different than destroying documents, in my opinion. So when you talk about what's going on in Ukraine right now, our hands as a government, let's say this, our hands as a government are clean. Because there's some nefarious, and I'm gonna keep using that word, nefarious things going on and that have gone on when it comes to Ukraine. Everybody wondered what was the main thing of what was it about Ukraine? Because nobody really heard about Ukraine until Donald Trump, former President Donald Trump, started talking about Ukraine. And then it became a big thing about what Ukraine had, what they could do, what their capabilities were. All that started becoming into the news. Why? And now we're seeing this. And I had to give Ukraine, everybody thought Ukraine, I guess, was going to be a punk, but they fighting back. They taking out just as many I shouldn't say it that way. There's as many casualties on both sides during this invasion of what Russia's doing to Ukraine. Ukrainian people are fighting back. You got civilians fighting back. Everybody over there standing tall to defend their country. I applaud them. But let's see how this is going to turn out. Stock market, Russian stock markets crash, oligarchs losing money. Now I seen this morning when I was perusing through the news that Putin wants to have a meeting. What do you want to talk about? What do you want to talk about? With all the destruction that is going on now you want to have a discussion. Keep your eyes open on this. Let's see what happens. President Biden asked for $6.4 billion to help aid Ukraine. To see how that goes as far as going through the Senate and the Congress, being approved. They want him to have Congress authorization to send troops into Ukraine, is what the Senate and the Congress are saying to President Biden before he sends them in. Yeah, we deployed troops into Europe, but they haven't gone into Ukraine. So let's see how this is going to turn out. Let's keep our soldiers, all our military members in prayer that have been deployed, and they may be deployed, because this is going to probably get uglier before it gets better. Just saying. That's where we're at with that. But here's the other one. Now, I mentioned that Donald Trump praised it. Mike Pompeo praised it. There's a lot of Republicans that praised what Putin did, and there's some against it. I'm not going to say all Republicans are cheering for him, but there's some Republicans that are against it. And this is where the water gets muddy for me. John Chaney. This is America's problem. Racism. White men can still do things that a black man can never do. Barack would never be allowed to have secret meetings with no notes, destroying secret documents, and withholding funds, etc. Oh, I thought somebody was going to chime in on that and say, there's nothing but facts. There's nothing but facts there. And the thing about it, and this is where the problems come in from a perspective of viewpoint. Because the thing is, no one else other than people of color would be able to make this statement, because we understand where we stand in this country as Black people, people of color, African American. Because there's certain decisions that are made by some folks, certain decisions made by us folk that are deemed completely different, even though the decision may be the same. This is where, when you talk about the systems, when you talk about racism, and as much as we try to distance ourselves and say it doesn't happen, it's alive and well. And like I say, when I appreciate that, John Chaney, I don't like to do comparisons, but facts are facts. Facts are facts. And as much as people try to say, oh, you always throw racism up in there, racism is embedded in the soil of this country. You don't even have to always, well, we don't have to continuously or always resort to the slavery aspect of this country. Just go back to the indigenous people that were here when they first when they were developing the United States of America. Let's talk about the Indians. Racism. Call it what it is. Stop trying to sugarcoat it and whatever. That's just what it is. But also, this is former White House Chief of Staff John Kelly told CNN he was in disbelief over some Republican support for Russian President Vladimir Putin during Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Now, John Kelly was former White House Chief of Staff under former President Trump. Former White House Chief of Staff John Kelly is a retired general officer from the military. He served under former President Trump. He knew the inner workings of what was going on with that administration as the White House Chief of Staff. For him to come out now and say that he's in disbelief about where Republicans stand on this and how he's in disbelief that they're siding with Putin and everything, where were you when all the other nefarious things were going on in the White House and in this government at the time when you were the White House Chief of Staff? I'm just asking the question, because it seems to me that everybody wants to be a whistleblower after the fact when you sat there and said nothing during the time it was happening. But we give them I'm not going to say we, they get a pass when they come out against something after the fact, but they should have spoke up when they were in the midst of what was going on. They knew. And anybody was a part of that administration with everything with the investigations going on now, they should be held accountable too because they were enablers. But nobody wants to talk about that. Nobody wants to hold them accountable. He also mentioned when asked about former President Donald Trump's recent praise for Putin, Kelly told CNN's Jake Tapper on Thursday that he doesn't get it. Putin is a tyrant. He's a murderer. He has attacked an innocent country whose only crime is that they want to be free and democratic, and they're working in that direction and have been working in that direction. Is Putin smart, he added? Yes. I mean, tyrants are smart. They know what they're doing, but I can't imagine why someone would look at what's happening there and see it as anything other than a criminal act. James Ballard Kelly was part of the nefarious things that were going on. He's as crooked as the orange dude. Exactly. Deborah Harris. If he said something before, wouldn't he be fired? Probably so. But I'm a true believer. Thank you for that, Deborah Harris, because it leads me into something else. I'm a true believer. If you stand around and you see nefarious acts going on and you're worried about being fired because you may say something that you may be a whistleblower or anything like that, that says more about your integrity than it does about the actions that are going on in front of you. I'm a true believer in that. If you see something going on and you choose not to say nothing until after the fact, when you're right in the midst of it, where does integrity come into play? And people will try to defend Kelly and his statements because he was a general officer in the military. Well, you know what? You got people in the military whose integrity is in question every day. Let's just be honest about it. You have people in your life whose integrity is in question every day. You know, it's one of them things where I hear people say, someone said it to me years ago, it said that's the type of person that'll throw a rock and hide his hand. That's what we're dealing with here. Throw a rock and hide their hand like they had nothing to do with it. But, you know, the consequences of being fired, but maintaining your integrity of you and your content of your character, which one is more important to you? Or which one do you want the public eye to see compared to who you try to be behind the scenes? That's a choice. That's a choice he has to make. It's a choice we all have to make. If we see something going on and we choose not to say anything about it until after the fact and say, oh, by the way, I seen all this going on when I was there. Well, what'd you do? Did you say anything? Or were you just part of the enabling process of keeping this person to be able to do what they're doing because there's no consequences to their actions? Let's see how far and how long this lasts with this invasion of Ukraine. And as I said, pray for the people in Ukraine. You may not know the people, but you know, the people have done nothing. The people have done nothing. You know, the people have done nothing. It's just like when the Twin Towers and the Pentagon were hit here, you know, by the terrorists. Let's just call them what they were, by the terrorists. The American people who suffered from that, who lost loved ones of that, had nothing to do with it. It was an attack against the government. They were casualties of war. Let's just call it what it is. So to hold all the people in Ukraine for some nefarious things, or to hold all the people in Russia for nefarious things going on, and to hold all the people in the United States for nefarious things that are going on, you can't do that. But those that side with the nefariosities, I just made that up, y'all bear with me, they need to be held accountable and they need to be talked about for what it is, And I'll continue to stand on that. I'll stand on that hill. I'll die on that hill when it comes to that. This week also, everybody remember Virginia Thomas? Oh, Virginia Jenny Thomas. Well, looks like the chickens may be starting to come home to roost. They're saying this week, Supreme Court Justice, as we talked about, Clarence Thomas's wife, Virginia Jenny Thomas, had ties to organizers of the January 6th rallies in support of President Donald Trump, as well as to efforts to subvert the 2020 election results. The Times revealed details about Thomas's role, which had been previously unreported. The Washington Post reported last month that Thomas shared a Facebook post on January 6th before the violence broke out. Love MAGA people. God bless each of you standing up or praying, she wrote. John Chaney. And just, that's not a word. I told you not to call me out on that. Nefariousity is my word. Let me roll with it. Let me roll with it. Y'all gonna hear some Coolingsisms on here. Just bear with me. But this Virginia Thomas, Clarence Thomas's wife, she's a longtime conservative activist, because they tried to give her background and everything. Played a peacemaking role among rally organizers so that there wouldn't be any division around January 6th. So she was the mediator for all these different organizations that were coming to the Capitol that day to protest. They said she was a mediator. She was the in-between. OT, good morning, bro. Appreciate the support. Stop laughing at me. Someone said the way it was presented to me was that Jenny was uniting these different factions around a singular mission on January 6th. Stockton said. The Times noted that other rally organizers disputed Stockton's account about Thomas, but did not offer specifics. So you got people trying to defend that she wasn't a part of it, but nobody can give specifics on how she wasn't. Thomas also served on the advisory board of Turning Point USA, a conservative nonprofit that sponsored the event and provided buses for rally goers on January 6th. Thomas is also connected with people who sought to undo the 2020 election results. John Eastman, the lawyer who wrote a memo on how Vice President Mike Pence could overturn the election results. Watch this now. Let me read that again because I want you to really hear this. John Eastman, the lawyer who wrote a memo on how Vice President Mike Pence could overturn the election results, previously clerked for Clarence Thomas at the Supreme Court and is a close friend to the couple, according to the Times. Steve Bannon, a one-time White House chief strategist for Trump, also endorsed efforts to challenge the election results. Jenny Thomas founded a group called Groundswell with Bannon's support, the Times reported. Thomas also served on the board of the Council for National Policy's political arm, CNP Action, which circulated a document titled Election Results and Legal Battles. What now? After the presidential election, according to the Times. The document urged members to call on Republican state lawmakers to challenge the 2020 election results. In 2020, CNP Action shared a newsletter with a report called 5 States and Election Irregularities and Issues, featuring 5 swing states where Trump had been attempting to overturn the results. The newsletter pointed to historical legal precedent for Congress to count a slate of electors different from that certified by the governor of the state. Michelle Long, good morning. Good morning. Appreciate the support. So what I'm reading here, and I hope what you're getting from this is, we have a Supreme Court justice who is married, whose wife, his spouse, is involved in all these different organizations that had a hand in trying to overturn an election. We have a Supreme Court justice who rules on these cases that deal with what happened on January 6th, who has a wife who's involved in a lot of organizations that were involved in the overthrowing and overturning the election results on January 6th. What does that say? Now, let me back up for a minute before I go there. These actions of his wife is what causes a lot of us, I'm going to say us, people of color, to see this individual, who is only the second African-American male to ever sit on the Supreme Court, as people try to put the label on him as being a sellout, Uncle Tom, things like that. Okay, I don't like those terms. Y'all know I don't like those terms, but these are the things that are said. I'm just repeating. But at the same time, if his wife is involved with these things in these organizations to overturn the election as it was done, or what they thought was wrong, what does that say about him and his beliefs when he's listening to these cases at the Supreme Court level? What does this say about him and his relationship? And what does it say to me about what these conversations are behind closed doors about these cases coming across his desk or that he's a part of? Because if you recall, about 2 shows ago, maybe 3, I told you that when it came time to vote on at the Supreme Court level whether the records were going to be released to the January 6th committee, the White House records, all the White House records were going to be released. Everyone was in favor of it except for one. Who was the one? Justice Clarence Thomas. I don't write it, I just report it. And as I mentioned then, and I'll say again now, the reason he dissented is because his wife, Jenny, as they say, Virginia, Jenny, his name is tattooed and written in some of these documents, I'm pretty sure. By him voting no, he was trying to make sure that her name was not put out there as part of what this nefarious acts were, nefariosity. Yeah, John Cheney, nefariosity is. It's just what it is. It's just what it is. Deborah Harris, a house divided. Is it? Is it? And the only reason I say it, I'm not saying it's not, but the only reason I say that is because I have to look at the bigger picture. If I'm a Supreme Court justice in the highest court of the land, I would think that my spouse, significant other, whatever she may be, would have the mindset that anything that she does could tarnish my image and what my job is to this United States of America because of where I sit. And for you to be involved with nefarious acts could jeopardize who I am, my standing, my legacy, because I've been in the Supreme Court 30 years. 30 years. So then it starts to go back and people start to question, as far as I'm concerned, I'm starting to question any of the cases that have gone up to the Supreme Court in the last 30 years, what were they based on when he made his decision? See, all this falls into play when you start questioning these things, when you start hearing these things, you start going back. You don't go forward about what they may do. You go back to what they did do. So now I got to question every case he's ever heard that deals with politics as far as which side he was on and which way he chose to sway or vote, where he dissented, where he was with the majority. All that comes into play for me. James Battle, could you imagine what have happened if the actual election would have come down to a Supreme Court ruling like Bush versus Gore? That's a good one. I didn't think about that. Never thought about that. Thanks, James Battle. Yeah. Brian Hoodie, there are no accountability standards ethically or legally for Supreme Court justices. So, and you're right, I read up on that. I did take a point to read that. The Supreme Court justices have no guidelines that they're accountable to. Nothing written, nothing in writing, nothing established. They have nothing that they answer to except for what they rule on. Nothing. Terrence Collins, good morning, my brother. Good morning. Appreciate the support. Deborah Harris, but obviously it didn't matter who would be tarnished, therefore a house divided. Yes. Yeah, and I get where you're going now. Yes. I agree now. I agree. Because yeah, a house divided. I'm gonna just leave it at that. You're right. You're right. I was getting ready to say something that I probably shouldn't say, so I'm not going to say. Even though this is speak on, there's certain things I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. But yes, a house divided. No matter whose side is tarnished, no matter who's doing what, when, where, why, a house divided. You are absolutely correct. And I bring this up to lead into our next thing. We're going to go from Jenny Thomas and her nefarious acts. Her husband sitting on the Supreme Court for 30 years. Never being questioned about what he is, what he's doing, or anything like that. Nothing ever being brought up about what organization she's a part of or anything like that, because it's never gotten to the point where it affected what was going on in our election results or anything like that. So she's been a part of this movement for a long time. It just came to a head now when they started trying to overturn the election. That's the only reason we know that's the only reason we really know who Jenny Thomas, Miss Virginia Thomas, is in the big capacity of what she stands for. But this week, yesterday, matter of fact, President Joe Biden nominated Ketanji Brown Jackson. Now, if everybody remembers, this is the one that was at the top of the list from the beginning. She was there from the beginning. This is who everybody thought he would nominate. They say she was the most qualified. And there's a lot of feedback, and I got one I want to read specifically, but this is what she said yesterday. For too long, our government, our courts haven't looked like, well, this is what Biden said. Let me go back. President Biden said this yesterday when he announced her nomination. For too long, our government, our courts haven't looked like America. I believe it's time that we have a court that reflects the full talents and greatness of our nation with a nominee of extraordinary qualifications, and that we inspire all young people to believe that they can one day serve their country at the highest level. Ketanji Brown Jackson, I'm going to just start calling her Justice Jackson, is 51 years old, and she currently sits on the D.C. Federal Appeal Court and had been considered the front runner for the vacancy since Justice Stephen Breyer announced his retirement. And this was her comments yesterday. I must begin these very brief remarks by thanking God for delivering me to this point in my professional journey. My life has been blessed beyond measure, and I do know that one can only come this far by faith. Among my many blessings, and indeed the very first, is the fact that I was born in this great country, she added. The United States of America is the greatest beacon of hope and democracy the world has ever known. I was also blessed from my early days to have had a supportive and loving family. My mother and father, who have been married for 54 years, are at their home in Florida right now, and I know that they could not be more proud. I come from a background of public service. My parents were in public service. My brother was a police officer and was in the military, she said at the time. And being in the public defender's office felt very much like the opportunity to help with my skills and talents. I'm standing here today by the grace of God as a testament to the love and support that I've received from my family. And this is what she said to her. That was what she said at her 2021 confirmation hearing for the appellate court that she was just appointed to back in 2021. Now, her qualifications are magnificent. She's more qualified than a lot of people who sit there now. Let's just be honest. Some of the people that have sat there, and I wrote this down specifically because I wanted to bring this up, is that she has tried cases, 4 cases. Some of the people on the Supreme Court have never tried any cases. Let me say that again. She's tried cases. She was a public defender. She's tried cases as she sat on these different courts up to her ascension. And some of these people have never tried a case in their career. But as proud as we are that we're going to have a black woman African-American woman sitting on the Supreme Court, you know, there's always that one or two or many that feel that she's not worthy. Let's just be honest about it. There's going to be a lot of conversation about whether she's worthy or not, how they feel about her, whether it's a what they call it, affirmative action move, and this and that, and all the things about he shouldn't have said that he was going to appoint a black African-American woman. It should have just been the most qualified person. But this last night, Tucker Carlson. And most of y'all may know Tucker Carlson from being on Fox News. That's where he's at. But I watch him and I listen to him sometimes just see what ignorant thing he's going to say at the time he gets ready to say it. Let's just be real. But he said, this is what he said yesterday. Carlson said Jackson was nominated because of how she looks. Carlson said she was nominated because of how she looks. He said, do you want to live in that country? Most people don't, of all colors. They think you should be elevated in America based on what you do, on the choices, not on how you were born, not on your DNA, because that's Rwanda. One columnist called his comments the perfect distillation of white supremacy. But he didn't stop there. Carlson claimed Jackson's appointment showed Biden was committed to undermining equality. Now, maybe she's great, he said. That's not the point. Stop right there before I read any further. So you got the most qualified person being put up for a position at the Supreme Court. But that's not the point. Maybe she's great. That's not the point. His words, not mine. So now we're, this mindset is no matter how great you are as a person of color, and someone chooses to say that I'm going to put an African American woman or African American man in a position because they're nominated to that position, he doesn't care how great you are. It's the optics of them putting someone in there of color because we've never had anybody in there that looked like that. Let's just break it down to the simple terms. The point is she was picked because of how she looks. So what does that tell you? Not about the nominee, but about Joe Biden. It tells you that he is absolutely happy now watch this part. Let me give you this part, and I want you to listen closely to what he says. It tells you that he is absolutely happy to defile a system built by other people over hundreds of years ago. This is the best system in the history of the world, and he is happy to destroy it, doesn't care at all. Carlson also claimed Jackson wasn't much of a jurist, not simply ignorant of the law, but also a political activist. Let's go back to this. Happy to defile a system built by other people over hundreds of years ago. I'm going to go back to what I said before in some other shows. When you look at all the presidents up to Barack Obama, when you look at all the vice presidents up to Kamala Harris, when you look at all the Supreme Court justices up to Thurgood Marshall, and then Clarence Thomas. But by doing this with an African-American woman at the Supreme Court, Joe Biden, in the terms of Tucker Carlson, is defiling a system built by other people over hundreds of years ago. Yeah, I hope he is defiling the damn system that you're talking about. Because if you recall, the hundreds of years ago that you're talking about that this system was built, the black men that have sat on the Supreme Court, and the black man that sat in the White House, and the woman that's sitting in the vice president's seat, and this one is going to sit on the Supreme Court, were not worthy of being anything because they were considered slaves. When these rules and regulations, the Constitution, all these things were written, they were not even included in the thought process. So if what Joe Biden is doing right now by nominating a black woman to the Supreme Court is defiling the system, that's where it needs to start. And if you have a problem with it, if you Tucker Carlson or anybody in the United States that has a problem with it, then move to another country, as you tell us all the time when we don't agree with things. Go somewhere else, or get yourself elected to a position where you can make the change that you want to have change. But as the president of the United States, when all these other presidents have done what they've done, whether they owned slaves back in the day or they wouldn't sign the Civil Rights Act and all these things, if you want to say that Joe Biden is defiling the system by nominating this African-American qualified woman to this position, feel free, because I'm okay with it. Just like you were okay with the way it was set up years ago when they weren't even worthy to be nominated for anything. They were only worthy enough to cook the food, take care of your babies, plow the fields, and be beaten if they didn't follow the instructions. Let's not go there today. See, this is where you find out the true mindset of certain people. And people will say, well, he does it for shock value. No, that's in his heart. I'm going to call it today. I usually don't say I don't know a person's heart, but to say this, that's in the heart. That comes from the heart. James Battle, when Trump said he would nominate a woman to replace Ginsburg, not a word from any of them. What's the difference here? Nothing. Like Ugly said, pure white supremacy. It's exactly what it is. Deborah Harris. We can clearly read between the lines of what he is saying. Yeah. You only had to read between the lines. You just got to look at who's saying it. Gary Burns, white. Deborah Harris, he really has no idea what really happened in Rwanda. No, he don't have no. That was just for shock value to make people who are uneducated. Let me stop there. I'm not gonna say uneducated. For the people who follow his program who don't have enough education to know what happened in Rwanda. That was for their edification. That was all that was. I'm not going to call them uneducated because they listen to him. If you follow him, you follow him. What I will say is after you get done listening to him, go listen to somebody else. Get different opinions on these things, because one thing that I know for sure, if you continue to listen to one person who has these thoughts and you agree with them wholeheartedly and you don't take the time to listen to what somebody else may say or what somebody else may have a thought about, I ain't gonna call you what it is. Those who are uninformed. Appreciate it, Mr. Pringle. What's going on, my brother? Appreciate the support. Those who are uninformed. Thank you. Thank you so much. I don't want to call nobody uneducated. Uninformed. That one word make a difference, though. Educated, informed. Yeah. I laugh about this, but it's not a laughing matter. Let's just be honest about this real quick. We're talking about the highest court in the land, the Supreme Court. And there's this uproar about an African-American woman being not that she's been seated yet, but being nominated to be seated at that level. And Tucker Carlson is saying that Joe Biden is defiling the system by doing this. So now I want you to go from here at this level, and then I want you to think down here at our level. At the jobs we go to every day, at the jobs we apply for, at the places we go, the people we interact with, everybody at this level. Let's take this out of it and go here. And I want you to think about all the people who are fully qualified, who have never done anything wrong, who are judged strictly and held back from being anything they can be from a job they apply for, even though they're qualified at this level. And we're talking about one person here that's up for the Supreme Court. We're talking about millions of people here who are just trying to survive on a daily basis in this country. And they're dealing with people who have the same mindset of Tucker Carlson. And you tell me how at this level, as well as this high level here, that people can still say out of their mouths that there's no racism in this country, that the systems don't have racism embedded in them. And y'all gonna get tired of hearing me say this, but if you read as much as I do, and I'm not saying nobody that y'all don't, but as you read as many articles and listen to different interviews and things like that to try to keep yourself informed about what's going on. Thank you, Mr. Pringle. Informed, not educated, informed about what's going on. You will realize and you will see for your own self that there's a lot of things that go on in this country that we overlook that are truly, truly a product of racism that we tend to give the benefit of the doubt because of who said it and where it was said and how it was said and why it was said and all those different things. And the practices that are done in the hiring aspect and the way people are treated when they walk down the street, or the way people are treated when they commit a crime or a crime they didn't commit that they were accused of. It's all relevant. It's all relevant. And the only time that we are beat down and they try to use that dog whistle verbiage is when we're ascending to the highest levels of what this country has to offer and we're qualified and there's somebody who doesn't want to see us here. So they dig into the deepest trenches of their racism that they can find to spark the narrative that they think the other races in this country want to hear, to cause discourse in this country. Call it what it is. Call it what it is. John Chaney, we all know as black folks, we still had to be 10 times better than white folks to get any high position. We could never have a black president that's as stupid as Trump. You know, John, I'm gonna push back on you for a minute on that, and not anything you said. Everything you said is correct. The only part I would push back on is the stupid part about Donald Trump, because Donald Trump, as much as we want to say he's uneducated, uninformed, don't know what he's doing, anything like this, Donald Trump and how he became president was the smartest move of probably anybody who ever ran. And I say that because of this. What he did was he stoked the fire of all the people in this country who have the racism within them, and he allowed them to let it out. It was the smartest move he made because those people are the ones who were his main supporters that got him elected the first time against Hillary Clinton. Think about that for a minute. Hillary Clinton, as much as people don't like her, Hillary Clinton, of all the people that were running for president back in 2016, was the most qualified of any of them on the stage. Any of them. If you go back and look, most qualified, most prepared, politics, understanding how it works, all those things. You have to go back and look at the positions she held in politics. And let's not even take into account being the first lady. Let's just talk about her resume by itself. And in order to beat her, he went to the trenches of the worst mindset people could have about a woman and the African-American community or people of color, immigration, any of those issues that seem like white supremacy or white people were losing power and they would be able to get it back under him. You got to think about it. He played to the weakness of the mindset of what some of these people in America think they want and what they think they have control over by sparking that flame of racism towards a group of people that don't look like them. That's just the way I see it. I'm not sure how that's being clever. He's just able to get away with it because of privilege. Well, when I say clever, I mean the way he did it. I was the way he did it, because the thing is, he had those people thinking that he was the best man for the job, in spite of the fact that he was uninformed and let's just call it what it is at this point, Mr. Pringle, uneducated on how the political process works. But I will say this. It was the smartest move that he did, but it was also the dumbest move that he ever did. Because if he wouldn't have ran, and I say this not in his defense, but just as an observation, if he wouldn't have ran for president, all the nefarious activities he'd done in his life would have never come to light for prosecution until he ran for president. I want you to think about that. Just my observation. It's just me. Just me. Stop Woke Act. Stop Woke Act. Florida just passed got two major wins. Florida Republicans got two major wins Thursday when lawmakers passed the Stop Woke Act and what critics call the Don't Say Gay bill through the House. This is crazy. James Battle, what you said is true. He started with the birthism issue and just expounded on it. Yeah, that's exactly what he did. And I didn't think to say birthism, but yeah, birtherism is what it was. That's what he started with, and that's what he ran on, to make it seem as though President Obama was not worthy to be president, or was not authorized, or could not be president because of where he was born, and so on and so forth. And it just went from there. John Cheney understood. Oh yeah, well, that's why we had these discussions, brother. You know, nobody's wrong. We just add our input in there to just where we see things, Deborah Harris, we know that racism is here. I feel Biden purposely stated he will put a black woman on the Supreme Court to keep things stirred up. His decision to choose Miss Jackson on the content of her character and her ability, period. We can see that she is black. Yeah. Well, I think the thing is, and everything you say is true. And I think the biggest part of when Joe Biden said what he said, as far as nominating an African-American woman to the Supreme Court, a lot of people will think that that's why he got nominated. That's not why he got nominated. Let's just be honest. It's not why he got nominated. He got nominated because everybody was tired of who was in there before him. And the other part of it is him saying that he's going to do this. Now, you still got to hold his feet to the fire if he didn't. Because he said it. We didn't ask him for it. He chose to put it out there. You see what I'm saying? There's a difference there. There's a difference. But yeah, and the thing is this. By him saying that, you know, people have accused Joe Biden of being racist because of the policing, crime bill back in the day and things like that. And depending on where you sit, you may see it that way. Depends on who you are, depends on what you believe and everything like that. But you have to look at the times. What's going on in the time? What happened during that era? Everything that was going on at that time. There were certain things that were done at different times that seemed right at the time. Now, there's no way anybody can convince me that slavery was right. There's nobody convinced me that not doing the Civil Rights Act earlier than when it was done was right. But it's all about progress and understanding and learning to understand. Now, you still got some people who have a problem with the Civil Rights Act when it came out. Hell, we're still fighting about the Voting Rights Act now. So it goes with, it ebbs and flows. It ebbs and flows. And as I always say on here, and I always say, just because I'm pro-black don't make me anti-white. And it's not that I have a problem with, any other nationality. What I have a problem with is the outright racism towards folks, no matter what you look like. That's where the problem comes in, and that's where it all comes into play. Brown hoodie, Jesse Jackson has the whole package, and that is the threat. That's the threat. That's the threat. See, here's the other thing. What people forget, Michelle Obama, as the first lady, was the most educated first lady ever. But they minimized that. They minimized where her standing was in the White House, who she was as a person. See, we shouldn't have to always broadcast our resume. But if you're going to broadcast somebody else's and try to put them on this pedestal, make sure you don't forget about us. And that's exactly what's going on with this nomination, in my opinion. We have educated justices other than African-American male justices that are qualified to hold these positions. All Joe Biden is doing is putting it into work. He's putting it out there that this woman of African-American descent is capable and qualified to be a Supreme Court justice, just like anybody else that sits up there. Not because of how she looks, but because of what she knows. And what she looks like, the only reason that's an issue is because we've never had anybody look like her sit there. That's the issue. But they'll minimize that and try to cover that by saying it deals with her not being qualified, where the qualifications speak for themselves. I mean, some of us have had positions where we've been promoted to, and you got people saying that you weren't qualified for it. It was an affirmative action move. And then you got some people that look exactly like you to say you shouldn't have got the position because they don't like you. What do? You take the position and do what you know you can do. You don't worry about that noise, that noise in the back or the outside noise, as they say. You do what you're qualified to do. And you don't do it to try to prove that you're qualified. You do it because you know you're qualified and you're able to do the job, and let your actions and your job and what you do speak for itself. I don't expect Justice Brown, right? I don't expect her to come out and say, I'm this, I'm that, I'm that. She don't need to do that. She's going up there when she gets nominated, when she gets appointed, and she's going to do her job to the best of her ability of what she knows and how she knows how to do it. But what they're also leaving out is the fact that she was under the person that's resigning. The person that's walking away, Justice Breyer. She worked under him. So that doesn't make her qualified, because all those other people up there, Kavanaugh, Coney Barrett, they made sure to recognize who they worked under that made them qualified for the position. But there's whispers about who she was under and why she's qualified for the position. Let's just put it out there. Let's put it out there. The Stop Woke Act. State of play, HB 7, aka the Stop Woke Act, sponsored by Representative Brian Avila, essentially seeks to ban classroom discussion and corporate trainings that make students or employees feel discomfort over their race. HB 1557, proposed by Representative Joe Harding and dubbed Don't Say Gay, would limit classroom discussions on sexual orientation and gender identity while encouraging parents to sue schools or teachers that engage in these topics. Versions of both bills are also advancing in the Senate. Why it matters. The bills, both backed by Governor Ron DeSantis, are now one step closer to becoming law. So basically what this comes out is this. This Stop Woke Act, Don't Say Gay bill. This bill in Florida is allowing parents to sue teachers in the school district who choose to teach curriculum and include anything that talks about homosexuality, which is the Stop the Gay bill part of it, and the Stop Woke Act if they're talking about critical race theory or anything that they feel touches on that. So if you're talking about slavery in your classroom, kid goes home and tells their parents about it, you could be sued. This is where we're at. And the Republicans in Florida are about to pass this law. This is your state level legislature doing this. Not at this level, at the state level that we ignore so often. Stop Woke Act, Don't Say Gay bill. Now I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to say within the United States of America alone, with all the people we have here, when we talk about statistics as far as, coronavirus, who had it, who didn't, who's vaccinated, who's not, let's go into how many families right now have homosexuals within their family. On the broad sense of things. Not saying it may be your brother, your sister, it might be your cousin, your second cousin down the line, anything like that. Let's think about that. And now narrow it down to the fact that Florida took the time, not worrying about homelessness, unemployment. They're not worrying about any of that stuff to take care of you as far as your policies and what's going to benefit you as far as tax cuts. They ain't worrying about any of that. They're concentrating on whether in school or whether in any curriculum that your children may be told something or taught something that deals with homosexuality within the school. Now, I'm not saying that it should be taught openly, but we had sex education class when I was in school. And sex education was to give you the knowledge of the functioning of your parts, per se, and what the sexual orientation was all about. Incorporating the sexual orientation of homosexuality or any of that kind of stuff in there, I don't really see a major problem with it, because here's my thing, and we always heard it from our parents. If you don't hear it out in the streets or in school or wherever, you're going to see it on TV. You see it in commercials now where you got two fathers and a daughter, or two mothers and a son, or any of that kind of stuff. And then you also go into the interracial relationships. We won't go there. We're just going to stick where we're at. But all these things are relevant to the fact that your constituents, if you live in Florida, are more concerned about your kids learning and hearing anything in their curriculum about some homosexuality than they are about stopping homelessness and raising taxes, the inflation going on, all these different things. And then the Stop Woke Act, we've been hearing about that forever, about critical race theory and all this kind of stuff. So they added these two together. Why? What's the fear? What is the fear? What is the fear? And what is it that they don't have, or what job don't they have that they got to worry about things like this? Because to me, this is just me, if your kids are going to school and they're being educated on sex education class, sexual orientation comes up, your kids are curious about it, ain't that the conversation that you're supposed to have with them as the adult? See, Republicans always talk about the government controlling and dictating everything that we do in this country, but they're the ones guilty of it. You're bleeding into the education system, and they're trying to eliminate the Department of Education. Just seen that this week. And let the states dictate how education is taught in the schools. Why? Because most of the levels of that level in every state are run by Republicans right now. So they can pick and choose what they want taught, what they don't want taught. Faye Jackson, good morning, my brother. Gerald Page. Wow. Yeah, it's crazy. OT, church is about to get canceled. Another one. But that's where we're at. This is where we're at. They don't have anything else to do as far as laws and what's going on with gun violence or, terrorism acts or insurrections or any of that kind of stuff. But they got time. They found time to sit down and write a Stop Woke Act and a note. What was the gay bill? I can't remember. I'm sorry. Don't say gay bill. So you ain't even supposed to say gay. You ain't supposed to call nobody gay. They're worried about, the bathroom separation things and everything. And something that someone said years ago that I heard, and I'll repeat it because as I get older, I understand it. If you're not gay or you don't have gay tendencies or whatever, why does it bother you what someone else chooses to do? I mean, for me, do what you do. Do you, because I'm going to do me. But your sexual preference does not dictate how I should treat you, how I should look at you, because that's between you and your maker at the end of the day. But if I'm not interested in you, why does it bother me? I've never understood that. That don't make you different. That just makes you got a preference. Hell, you got women that like men that are 6 feet or taller. You ain't got a problem with them unless you're a short man like me and you be like, oh, I'm trying to holler at you, but you don't like me because I'm short. That's a different situation. Everyone has preferences. But we don't judge everybody on their preferences until they say they're gay. But now we want to blockade out what their preferences are by not being to educate children on what this is all about. Because here's the thing. It's not giving them the education because that's the way they're going to go. We're giving them the education because they're aware. And if you're not making your children aware before they get to the school where it may be taught, then that says more about you as a parent than it does about the education system that they're going to. Just me. I don't think it should be broadcasted over, but it's out there. It's out there and it needs to be addressed, but not at the level where they trying to put these Stop Woke acts and don't say gay bill and all that. Gary Burns, just like they took prayer out of school. Yeah, well, I'll tell you a lot about where we're going as a nation and where we've been. It's 2 weeks in a row, man. Y'all don't I done ran over messing with y'all. Messing with y'all. Y'all done got me all hyped and everything else today. I don't know what's going on. Let's see. Let's go ahead and do what we do Saturday morning. Let's get into this. Let's go. Mind, body, and soul. Mind, body, and soul. It's year 2022. We're taking it one day at a time as well. And also this year, we're taking it the 1,440 minutes that we get every day. It's 24 hours a day, breaks down to 1,440 minutes each day. Enjoy each moment for what it has to offer and what it brings to you. Homeschooling. Yeah, OT. Exactly. Homeschooling. What we got to do. You got to do what you got to do. Today's mind, body, and soul. The quote is this: the sun does not ask permission to shine, and neither should you. The sun does not ask for permission to shine, and neither should you. When we talk about us as individuals, we all want our shine somehow, some way. And some of us shine consistently about who we are. We're comfortable in our own skin. And there's sometimes that we dim ourselves down because of the company we keep or the jealousy and envy that is within the company that we have around us. But if the sun continues to shine, it may be a cloudy day, but the sun is still emitting the same amount of light in that cloudy day as it does on that sunny day. And you should do the same. Don't let anyone or any situation minimize who you are and how you feel about yourself, because they may see you differently. So there's many situations where we are around people that we know we have to bring who we are down to fit into who they want us to be. And then we get around other folks where we let our full light shine. Be yourself. Be your authentic self. Do not minimize your shine. Do not minimize who you are to fit into an environment that doesn't appreciate you for who you are in its totality. Just as we talked about with the Justice Brown that's about to go up there and become a Supreme Court justice. She shouldn't have to minimize who she is and her qualifications to fit into the narrative of what they think it is about her just being a affirmative action choice. She is qualified, she is ready, and this is her time. This is her time. It's not the time of the people who don't want her there. It's not the time of the people who have this negative connotations about how she got there. She's there, and it's her time to shine. And anybody, when you have the opportunity to be your authentic self in any environment, never dim your light to make somebody else feel that theirs shines brighter. If your light shines that bright, blind them. Blind them with it. Because you are who you are because you have worked to become the person you are, not the person that they want you to be. And as I say again, the sun omits the same amount of sunshine on a cloudy day that it does on a clear day. Why should you be any different? This is your world. Make the most of it. Be who you are and shine bright. Because what they'll recognize is if they're blinded by your light, that means they need to turn their light up a little bit more. Because if they're not reaching the potential of who they're supposed to be, that's not your fault. If their light doesn't shine as bright as yours, that's not your fault. And you shouldn't feel guilty about how bright your light is compared to somebody else. Because it's not about being compared to somebody. It's about being you and what God has bestowed upon you to allow your light to shine bright for people to recognize the greatness in you. Because everyone has greatness in them. How you choose to let your light shine with your greatness is your choice. But don't let others' mindsets and thoughts about you dictate and regulate you minimizing your light to make them comfortable with who you are. That's all I'm going to say on that. John Chaney, what is my biggest fear? Kevin Banks, be you and let the check falls where they fall. OT, facts. Amen, amen, amen. I appreciate everybody tuning in this morning. It's another great show. I know I went over again, but y'all know what? These conversations are getting good each week, and I appreciate y'all for tuning in, commenting, doing what y'all do. I'm sad to say next week I won't be on. I got a previous engagement I got to go to. I got to attend this previous engagement, but I will be back the following week. So I'm taking next week off. Go to the website, go to YouTube, download any of the shows, listen to old shows, whatever. I may pop up on there and give y'all a little word, maybe a bound body and soul from where I'm going to be. But just know that when I come back on the following Saturday, we're going to continue doing what we're doing. As I always say before I sign off, love yourself, love one another, keep your head up, and most definitely, keep your faith in God. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. And we out. Love, love, love one another. Don't give up. I'll holler at y'all next week. Peace.